Hey, it's Dr. Schmidt. So I want to list off a whole bunch of success stories, and I want to give you this idea that my approach is diet and supplements. I've talked about that a lot. And there's a lot of doctors that I study from, and they know a lot about diet, and they've never used supplements. And especially in the medical field, they're taught on day one that diet doesn't matter and supplements don't work. So for a medical doctor to go into the diet realm, that's really awesome. And there's a lot of keto low carbers that I study from, and they're deep in the research, and they have their successes, and I have my successes too with this, similar dietary consultations. But there's a lot missing if you don't address organs specifically, or detoxification, or trying to kill pathogens with herbs, etc. Now, in the holistic field, especially, like, I'm a chiropractor, so I know the chiropractic field quite well. I think there's 70,000 chiropractors in the United States, and a significant percentage of them use nutrition. But I know within the chiropractic field, there's a couple groups that really comprises of maybe a few thousand people. They don't study diet. They only talk about supplements. And when they do talk about diet, they're talking about dysglycemia, which is a term that really is 15 years old, or hypoglycemia, or the Mediterranean diet, heaven forbid. But yeah, there's still some people that talk about the Mediterranean diet. And they haven't caught up with the keto research and the carnivore research and the successes there. So the diet is the foundation. Supplements are supplemental to the good diet, and I do both together, and I get these phenomenal results. So let's just jump in on some of these. I have a patient, and he's hasn't walked in 7 years. He's got a really severe case of multiple sclerosis, and he's been a patient of mine just for a month or two. And he's got swelling under his right jaw, and he's muscularly fatigued, and his speech is bad. He just, the muscles in the throat and the jaw, they're just not working as well. From head to toe, his muscles aren't working very well. But I know, just based on his symptoms, he's got swelling under his jaw. That means he's got lymphatic congestion. So I put him on lymphatic detox supplements, and then mitochondrial enhancing supplements. And the last time I talked to him, he's doing better. And he said to me, he's talking better. He sounds better on the phone. And his muscles feel better, and he's not as fatigued. Now, he's still not walking. He stands up a few times an hour, but he feels stronger. And he tells me the supplements are working. He said, I've tried so many things in the past. So there are people that have tried so many, for a decade or more, and they buy supplements on Amazon, and they talk to a whole bunch of supplement gurus and doctors, and it pays to talk to somebody I've been at this since studying supplements since 1994. So I have a patient who he lives a couple hours from me, and I've seen him a few times. He had a swollen prostate that backed up the urine into his kidneys and damaged his kidneys. And the medical doctors correctly addressed his prostate, and it was a fungal infection. But he needs more help. You can do an acute treatment medically for a fungal infection like that for the prostate, but there's more of a long-term thing that needs to be addressed. But more specifically, I'm helping him repair his kidney function. Now, his urine output was 800 milliliters per day, and the goal is 4,500 milliliters. And it's been, I think, about 5 or 6 months. He's up to 2,000 milliliters output of urine per day average. So he's on his way to getting his kidney function back. And then his GFR is better, and his creatinine is better. And so what that means is the lab tests are showing that his kidneys are getting better. So he's on the way, and it's been, like I said, 5 or 6 months. And it may be a year, it may be a year and a half, up to 2 years, who knows. But that's what it takes sometimes, is that much time. Here's an interesting case study. So I have a gentleman that he saw me in the office. Now he lives out of state, and he'll come back in a few months. But in the 1980s, he was working on a boiler that exploded. So there's fire and smoke, and he inhales a bunch of smoke, and he has to run out of the building so he can breathe. And his lungs have been burning Since then, so now that he's been on supplements, I put him on some supplements to clear out his lungs. All the burning is gone. And it's taken about 3 or 4 months. So let's put this in perspective. There's no drug that gets rid of the smoke damage that he inhaled in his lungs. There's no surgery to correct it. There's no yoga pose that can fix his lungs. There's no diet that can remove the burning out of his lungs, the damage caused by inhaling smoke. There's no meditation that can fix the lungs that way. There's no positive affirmation that you can chant on a daily basis in the morning. It's only supplements that can do that. And it's detoxification supplements. And it still blows my mind. There are a few people here and there that think that detoxification is not a thing, or it doesn't exist, or it's whatever. No, detoxification is real. We're walking around on planet Earth. The Earth has never been more toxic than ever in the history because of what we have done to the planet and the plastic particles and the smoke and all that stuff. So let me share another story with you. This is not a patient of mine, but in 1998, I was working in an office in Toledo, and I was sharing it with another chiropractor. He was also doing nutrition. And he said to me that he was detoxing a person who used to smoke and hadn't smoked in 10 years. Well, in the middle of this detox program, this patient was sleeping, and he woke up in the morning, and he suddenly sat up in bed and coughed, and smoke came out of his mouth. He had smoke trapped in his lungs for years, and the detoxification supplements allowed his body to get smoke out in that one instance. These are the amazing stories I've heard throughout my whole career, stories that seem unbelievable, but they're only unbelievable if you don't use supplements and diet. These incurable conditions that medicine can't touch because they're using poisons and they're using knives, and they're not actually working with the human body. I mentioned the story once before. I'm going to repeat it now. A gentleman who was like 300 pounds or higher, and he was having trouble losing weight. He was doing the diet perfectly, and he was trying for months. I put him on parasite supplements. He started eliminating ropes and strings. He was getting rid of parasites. Then he dropped 30 pounds in 2 months, and his blood pressure was 160 over 100, and at 2 months he was at 108 over 90. So you have these situations, these chronic bugs. I call them bugs because I can't use the word infection. That goes against my license. That you need to handle them. They're chronic issues. And the hospitals and the medical clinics are great with the acute infections. They got antibiotics. They're okay with the viral infections, and they're okay with the acute fungal infections. And if it's a parasite, that's more of like a infectious disease department at a fancy hospital. But again, they're going to give you an antiparasitic drug every day for 7 days or for 14 days. No, people have chronic parasites, and it takes up to 2 years to get rid of these organisms. So we get results pretty quickly, especially with the new products I've been working with in the last couple of years. They've been fantastic. I have a patient that's been working with me for about a year, maybe more, and she has gallstones, so in her gallbladder and in the common bile duct. And her blood tests were crazy bad, and she was overweight. And now, at this day, she's 80 pounds down. She's at 140 something, 145. And she just had a follow-up MRI. So her gallbladder still has some stones, and she still has a large stone in the common bile duct. That's where the bile leaves the liver and leaves the gallbladder and is going into the intestines. It's the largest bile duct. She's got a 15 millimeter stone there. But everywhere else, all the stones are gone. And all the inflammation of the pancreas is gone. And all the fascia, all the mucous membranes in the area, all the inflammation is gone. The swelling of the organs, it's all gone. So she just has to deal with these remaining stones. And there's supplements for that. There's Chanca, Piedra, there's Phosfood, there's Calamo, there's vitamin D and K2. and you can do a little bit of calcium lactate and put in the good calcium to help get rid of the bad calcium. There's things you can do for gallstones, and it seems like thousands of people get their gallstones, their gallbladder taken out every day in the Western world. And these doctors, these surgeons, they need to work with supplements, but they can't afford it. The doctors can't afford you taking these cheap supplements because they're so inexpensive. The surgeries are $8,000 and up to $25,000 to get your gallbladder taken out, depending on where you live and the time it takes to do it. I once had a patient who was pregnant and she had gallstones and she had symptoms, and I said, look, you can take these supplements. It's safe to take them when you're pregnant too. And she kept combating me. She kept coming back with some answer like, well, my aunt had her gallbladder taken out and she doesn't miss it. And I never sold her the supplements. She didn't want the supplements. But at one of those visits, I realized somebody's talking to her about this. And this person who's talking to her is a medical doctor, because I only hear her answers from medical people. So I asked her point blank, I said, who's the medical doctor in your family? And the answer was, my dad. I said, oh, so it's your dad telling you you don't need a gallbladder. It's your dad telling you that the surgery is a minor inconvenience. It's your dad telling you that supplements don't work. So there's a lesson learned there. I have a patient in the UK. He was a vegetarian for more than 20 years, and he had chest pain. And so I said, you got to eat meat every day. And he was eating meat like 3 times a week, and they were steaks, and he was going to a nice restaurant. And this is an interesting story. So I put him on, supplements, and he started eating meat, and his chest pain was gone, and now he can run for miles or jog for miles, whereas before that he had total exhaustion. And he was a lot better, and I haven't talked to him now for about 5 months. Well, we talked a couple weeks ago, and all of his pain is back, and he told me, my diet is crap, he's eating bad food. And I said, look, you're doing what a lot of people do. You do the right diet, you feel better, and then you think you're cured. And then you eat garbage again, and then your symptoms come back. So welcome to the club. It seems like everybody does it, but now you've learned your lesson, and you got to eat the right food for the rest of your life. The story gets better. He lives in this fantastic 300-year-old mansion in England, and he doesn't sleep in it. And I see the room. We do Skype, so I see the video, and he's in this gorgeous big room with beautiful wood, and he lives in a second house. It's like a guest house. And we were talking about the guest house, and he said that he realizes that there was a leak in the roof, and so through this past summer, he fixed the mold that was created by the leak in the roof, in the wall. He fixed the roof, and now he's all set. But then he told me, well, there's mold growing on the outside wall, exposed to the elements. I said, you got to fix that. You got to remove the wood or whatever that siding is. You got to replace it with something brand new. And he's like, oh man, I said, it's affecting your lungs. He had talked about symptoms related to sleeping in there and all that. So I said, why don't you sleep in your house, your gorgeous 300-year-old mansion? And he said, well, I have a guy coming, and we're going to change the garage into a livable space. I'm going to sleep in the garage. And he's avoiding this question about the house. So I asked him again, why don't you sleep in this beautiful mansion, this fantastic? And he goes, well, because it's haunted and there's a poltergeist, moving objects. I was like, oh, okay. Got it. Well, whatever it takes, the mold, it has to be taken care of. You can't be sleeping in a room or in a house that has mold. So fix it up, sleep where you want to sleep, but you got to get rid of the mold. So the story gets better. So in this house, he was working during the day, and he was actually selling supplements online. And he had $20,000-$30,000 worth of supplements in stock in the house, and he had an employee. They would take orders online and ship out to all around the world, including locally in the UK. So this is about 6 or 7 years ago, and he was informed that he was getting shut down. And they were getting shut down by the Medical Health Regulatory Authority, which is basically like the FDA of the UK. And they're controlled by Big Pharma, of course. And so they had about 7 or 8 guys come, and some of them were retired police officers, and others were currently, in uniform police officers. And they came in multiple cars, and they all came together. They knocked on the door, and they said, "We're shutting you down." And he said, "Why?" And they said, "Well, because you're selling supplements that have Viagra." And he goes, "No, I don't have any of that." And they had the paper like, "Yeah, it says right here." He goes, "Nope, I don't have it." And they go, oh, we're sorry. That's a different company. We're shutting you down because of this other reason." And he goes, "I don't do that either." And the cop was like, "Well, we're shutting you down anyways. We're just going to shut you down." And he goes, "Why? I didn't do anything wrong." He goes, "Well, we have a quota. We have to shut down 25 natural healthcare suppliers per month. And you're next." So they took all of his inventory and they drove away. And there's that. So the only reason why the Big Pharma has control over the government and the regulatory authorities, including in the United States and the UK, is because they're so wealthy. And they've controlled the government to create this sort of monopoly. And this is pure fascism, right? It's not the free market. Fascism is where you have a corporation using the force of the government, which has all the guns and the authority to throw you in jail or to fine you, to take your money, and they're going to control you. They control the culture, they control the licensing, they control the education, and if you get away from this, then they throw you in jail. So the way that you break up this monopoly is you can't really pass laws, can you? There's got to be enough of this groundswell, and there's got to be a lower amount of income going into Big Pharma. So the first time in 50 years, the cost of drugs has dropped in the United States. And that's because of our current president lowering prices by executive authority. So we want less and less profit going into the hands of Big Pharma. And that's more freedom for you. I have a patient named Anthony who flew in from Nigeria to see me. And I have some statistics right here. His right ankle was swollen for 2 years. And he also had a wound on it for 3 years. And his blood pressure was 130/90, and it was consistently just a little bit too high. So when I did the muscle testing procedure that I do, I found fungus in his body, so I put him on supplements for that, and we wanted to flush out the kidneys. 2 months later, now his blood pressure is averaging 106/77, and his wound on his right ankle is completely gone, and his swelling is much reduced. When I first put him on the first kidney supplement, it's called Buco, it's a liquid, he urinated 4 times in one night, and it was a large volume of urine every time he went to the bathroom. It made his kidneys work better that night, and he's also off all of his blood pressure medications. I have a patient who saw me diagnosed with gastroparesis, and he had horrible stomach problems, and he had headaches, panic attacks, breathing problems, chest pain, and he could eat only small meals because his stomach was in such bad shape. And when I took the history, he went through all these medical procedures and diagnoses and all that, but he had some mold exposure. And when I did the muscle testing procedure that I do, I found mold in his pituitary, in the center of his brain. You can only find that sort of situation with muscle testing, and I have a few videos on that. And you can only do that in person. Like, you come to my office and get that done. But it's really good at finding information. And I put him on the right supplements. And 1 month later, no headaches. And his headaches were right here on the left side of his head. That's indicative of pituitary dysfunction, which causes the gastroparesis and heartburn and acid reflux. But in 1 month, no headache, no panic attacks, no breathing problems, no chest pain, and he can eat a decent-sized meal. So 1 month later. Now, at the second visit, 2 months into it, he had a problem. He had an infected tooth, and he went on an antibiotic. And so he had, bacteria fight fungus, and fungus fights bacteria. They fight for real estate in the body. So if you have too much fungus, you kill it. And if you have too much bacteria, you kill that. And then the fungus will thrive. And that's what happened. He went on an antibiotic. The bacteria were killed off. The fungus took off again. And I had to remind him, like, look, this will take months and a year. It might take 2 years to fix this completely. But he had really good results in 1 month. I was talking to somebody else recently who was on 4 months of antifungal program and was doing much better, and then he quit it. And I hadn't talked to him in like 8 months. Now, sometimes people just drop off. We do reminder phone calls. We do friendly emails like, hey, it's been a while. So he got back on the program. We talked to him, I talked to him last week. And he's like surprised that he did it for 4 months. He got better, but then it came back. And I'm like, dude, it's going to take, for me, 5 years. That's my projection. I've been at it 3 years, getting rid of mold out of my body, doing great. But according to the blood test and the urine test, it's going to take me 2 more years maybe. So for his symptoms, it's going to take that long. I have a patient who was having nervous system problems and brain problems, cognitive problems. And one of the main tests that I do is I have people write their name, and they have to hold their arm up in the air, and I push on their arm with my arm as they're writing their name. So we're testing the function of their brain, their eyes, the nervous system communication to their fingers for fine motor skills. And they need to be able to hold their arm up as they write their name at the same time as while I'm pushing on their arm. It's one of the muscle testing procedures that I do. And so this person, I put them on the right supplements for their brain. And when they came back, their vocabulary was better, their writing skills were better, clarity of thought was better, and their brevity of speaking and printing was better, and their signature and flow of their handwriting was better. So their whole nervous system was getting better. Their brain was functioning better. I mean, this is a scary thing. People come to me and they say, I'm afraid of Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's rates are going way up. And you got to consider it's a lack of ketosis. It's too much carbs in the diet, too much sugar. And it could be toxicity. It could be bugs in the brain and all that. But number one, it's the diet. So we have great supplements that feed people's brains and nervous system so they can heal better and faster. Okay, I'm almost done with this rollout of the ebook. It's currently 57 pages long. And then we have a free introductory course that gives the foundations and the basics of how to heal the body. It includes 14 videos, and I'm really excited about it. And I've created now my future courses. And we're having 2 tiers for these courses. The first tier is like entry level, and there will be a smaller fee. And then the next level courses will be a higher fee. But like I said, there's going to be like a foundation of information. It's kind of like when you build a house, you have to start off with how to use a hammer and how to measure and how to use a saw. Like that's the basics. That's free. I'm giving that to you for free. And then the entry level courses are going to be more about drainage and increasing mitochondrial energy, enhancing fitness, killing parasites, ketosis, pathogens, fasting, and then like more specifics on weight loss. Those are still tools. Then the more advanced courses, they're going to be more specific to various conditions. Diabetes, ulcerative colitis and Crohn's, heart, all the heart stuff, cancer protocols, nutritional and off-label drugs and off-patent drugs. And you got to see an oncologist. Toxic mold, chronic viruses, chronic bacteria, mental health, Lyme. So I have lots of subjects that we're going to get into. It's going to be more than a year of me creating courses, and I'm really excited about it. And this way I can get off these platforms like YouTube and Facebook. They're censoring. They are very pro big pharma, and they don't want you to be well. So anyways, we have an exciting 2020 and an exciting future. I'm really happy about this. And we'll be rolling out the ebook here in the next couple of weeks. So thanks for listening to this longer video. It's been a couple weeks since I put out my last video. Please give it a thumbs up, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the future.